to Accelerate Your Wealth, a podcast by Rebecca Robertson, founder and director of Evolution Financial Planning. We hope you enjoy the show, and please feel free to leave us a review. It really does help. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, or head over to www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk or our sponsor, Evolution Financial Planning, for regulated advice on www.evolutionfinancialplanning.co.uk/podcast.
Hey, it's Rebecca here, and welcome to this week's podcast show. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I've actually recorded this show once already, so I'm going to try and do it justice once again. You would have missed my cat interrupting. He was walking in front of the screen and trying to curl up in my coat, all kinds of things. You've missed out on that. Basically, the audio wasn't working, so I used my mic and everything as a normal, like I done last time, but something didn't quite work. So I'm hoping, as I'm talking to you now, that this is actually going to come through on the audio. So I'm having to, because I was late recording that one. I should have recorded that show weeks and weeks ago. I only recorded it on Friday. It's now Sunday, and this is due to go out this coming Friday. I don't normally record these quite so last minute, but anyway, you could be listening to this at any time, so who really cares about all of that, right? I'm waffling. I'm just going to get cracking with my content and what I'm talking to you about this week. So what I want to start doing, however, is start giving you like a little bit of a what's going on with me kind of update. I think sometimes I think that's something I want to change about this new lot of podcasts. So that's going to change depending on when I'm recording it. So Fridays is one version, today is a different version. So yesterday I went to a conference, one of many conference. It's a conference for women. I've known the community for about 8 or 9 years, maybe as long as that, definitely 7. And they have a conference once a year, excuse me. And I've actually been through their Lead the Change program, which is a year-long program, which is 4 retreats over a year with 12 months coaching, one-to-one coaching, as well as other stuff. So I wanted to go back and plug into that community and see lots of people and give them lots of cuddles and just give them a little bit of a hug. So, but if you're somebody that is into personal development, but maybe you've not done tons of it, but you want to get more involved in it and you want to understand more about what triggers you, what affects you, the trauma of that, what's involved with that, then I would definitely recommend, there's lots of things, lots of podcasts that you can listen to. There's lots of, mine included, lots of books you can read, of course, there always is. But you can't really be a community of women that are all under the same sort of ethos and goals and focus. So I thought I'd just pick something from my notes, which I thought, for me, one thing I picked out is that why don't I care for myself better? There's a real underlining, like I just think, oh, I want it. I want that chocolate. I want that takeaway. I'll have it. Whereas I know that I shouldn't. So why don't I? There's a little bit about masculine and feminine energy. And one of the ones that I really, really like is, and excuse my language, is it's like this triangle. I forget what they call it, but at the top you have a bitch. At the corner you have a victim, and then the other corner you have a martyr. So if you think about an argument that you've had with someone recently and how you reacted to it or how they reacted to it, often either one of us go into one of those stances, or in our head we do, and we say these things in our head and we sort of play that out. And I find myself that I don't necessarily react as triggered to things anymore, but I certainly put myself to the bottom of the list, and therefore I become a martyr for that. As a mother, I think we seem to look after everybody else and then work the rest out later. But I'm a lot further along the journey than what I was 7 years ago. So that was super interesting. I was sitting there realizing how far I've actually come. And we talk about feel the well. So before you can help others and support the world and help the community and all the rest of it, you have to feel the well. So yeah, go and check out one of many. They're an amazing community of women, and they may have a retreat or an online course that might be suitable for you. So that's a little update of what I did yesterday. But this week we're talking about pensions versus ISAs. It's not too sexy. Next week, which I might do today, I might do in the week. I'll see how my week goes, how this goes, how much work I get done. I've got so much more work to do today. On a Sunday, I'd never work weekends. Usually it's just we're just really busy at the moment, where we've changed networks, which is a whole other story. But I think I'm going to talk about charging in business and charging your worth and the general sort of how you charge for things. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about that, pricing, sales, that kind of stuff. I haven't yet figured that out. But anyway, for now, I'm going to talk about pensions and ISAs. So one of the questions that a lot of people come to me with are, should I do a pension? Should I do an ISA? So I'm not giving you regulated advice with this little chit chat. I am going to be giving you generic information that you can find on the internet anywhere, but I'm just going to be condensing it and putting it into Rebecca words, which I'm told I can do very well by making it really simple and easy to understand. I don't like to use the word layman terms, so I think that sounds really condescending. I see myself as a layman, and I think I'm actually, Simon Sinek said this, he always asks really stupid questions because he thinks that he's really, not that he thinks he's stupid, but he doesn't think he's that intelligent. So he asks really simple questions, but actually it's the question that everyone else is thinking. I'm a little bit like that when it comes to explaining things. I have to understand it really, really well in very simpleton terms, in the most granular way. But then once I've got it, I can explain it really well. So where should we start? Okay, so the first thing to mention is with pensions, it's a longer term investment. It doesn't have to be, but the principles of the tax wrapper, as it stands, is a longer term investment. So you can have an ISA and a pension running for exactly the same amount of time. They can run for 20 years, 30 years, however long you want to. But the principle of a ISA is a shorter term investment in terms of the tax benefits, is certainly as well. Whereas a pension is meant to be for older, later life. But financial advisors, in terms of our wealth planning, we don't always cut and dry black or white, one or the other. Yes, we prioritise one, usually pensions, for the tax benefits, but ISAs also have equally good tax benefits, and actually for clients work quite well in tandem together. But it depends on how much money you've got and what your objectives are. So that's obviously, again, this is generic information. It does depend on your individual circumstances. So I haven't turned my phone off, so I will turn that off. Pensions are a long-term investment. You can't touch them until you are either 55 or 57. The rules change depending on when your birthday is. So if you land on your birthday before 2028, then you can retire at 55. Later than that, it's then changed to 57. So it depends on where you are right now, if you're coming up to a 55th birthday in the next 4 or 5 years. So that's the first thing. So if you are investing long term and you are 20, 30 years away from retirement, and we're wanting to draw on this money, retirement isn't the same as what a lot of people used to think it is. People used to see retirement as old age knitting. It's not like that anymore. One of my clients goes naked skinny dipping all over the world and travels all over the place. I think she's going to the Congo soon. So it's not as it used to be. And then I have other people that run businesses that they just scale back and they just do things slightly differently for a period of time, and then they might go and do another project, and they might do a bit of traveling, and it's not as linear as it used to be. Certainly when my nan retired, she did a lot of knitting, and I used to enjoy it with her, actually. So no offence meant about the knitting. It's a Sunday, so you hear my relaxed tone, and I'm not half asleep, but just not in work mode, whereas normally I'm recording these in between lots of work stuff, so I'm like in this get stuff done sort of tone of my voice. Today's Sunday, so I'm a little bit more chillaxed. Yes, so longer term investment. And whereas an ISA, you would say it's a minimum of 5 years. And that's a stocks and shares ISA, not a cash ISA. Cash ISA, you can transfer into a stocks and shares ISA, but obviously it's cash, which at the moment, interest rates aren't too bad, but they're short-term sort of view on them, not long-term. The tax benefits of a pension as a business owner are that if you pay money into a qualifying pension, and it's a qualifying contribution, then it can effectively reduce your profit in the business, therefore effectively reduce your corporation tax that you have to pay, because otherwise it would sit there as profit and you pay tax on it. So that's especially important if you're now in 2023 to 2024 tax year, turnover to over 250,000. Obviously, the tax code has increased to 25%. Below 250,000, it's 19%. So that can save you a lot of tax, right? The allowances that are allowed to pay into the pension as a limited company business owner for this tax year is 60,000. The previous tax year was 40,000, obviously minus any previous contributions. And you can backdate up to 3 previous tax years. And that applies for anybody, in fact, the backdating part. So that can be a better way than paying dividends, paying income to yourself and then paying it into an ISA, because then you're paying dividend tax and then you're paying it into an ISA. However, if you've maxed out your pension, then that would be possibly something to consider, to draw the money out, pay the dividend tax on it and invest it into an ISA. If you're employed and you're paying into a pension, then obviously that's still tax deductible. However, if you were to pay income tax on it and you were employed or self-employed or a limited company owner, wherever the money came from, you had personal money, maybe it was just accumulated from income that you've got from the business, from your job, bonuses, whatever, you can make a personal contribution to a pension and you get tax relief. Effectively, you get money added to that pension for free by the government. You don't have to do anything, they just add money to it for free. So that can be a really great way to make your pension do more for you. Now, there's swings and roundabouts, because you can actually, you'll be taxed on that as an income tax later when you draw out on the pension, which I'll come on to in a second. But it still means that money is accumulating over a number of years. So that can have a massive compound effect. So it's a good thing to have still. Whereas with an ISA, you can put the money in, there's no tax relief, but later on, if you draw it out, there's no capital gains tax, there's no income tax to pay. So they're the most obvious differences. They're not necessarily investment-wise invested terribly different. There are some slight changes in terms of the horizon that investment managers are using, but it's not necessarily that you're completely invested hugely differently. If you have one fund that's like a Vanguard tracker and you've got your pension and your ISA in it, they're pretty much doing the same thing. There's just a slight tweak on historic horizon, or sorry, not historic, on the horizon of that particular fund, but generally they're the same. So if you've got money, sort of personal money that's inherited, or it's, you haven't sold something, maybe it's you sold a property, for example, and you've got excess or you've downsized, you can pay that money into a personal contribution into a pension or an ISA. You can do both, but you get the tax relief on the pension. When you draw out from a pension later on, as I mentioned, ISAs, you don't get taxed on anything. ISAs, you get 25% tax relief. So you get you can take up all of it if you want to, but you'll pay tax on it. 25% you can take tax free. So this is where ISAs and pensions can actually work quite well together, especially if you've got larger amounts to invest, because then when you come to draw on it later and you're going to then go into a higher income tax bracket, taking some from ISAs, some from pensions can be a good way. There used to be a limit on how much you could pay in as a whole over your lifetime into a pension. As of currently, that's now been abolished. But where that lands in the future, who knows? With a pension, you can, as I mentioned, do 60,000 up to 60,000 a year. That's if you're not a salaried director, you're employed by a company, then that is 100% of your salary capped at this tax year 60,000, previous tax year 40,000. So if your salary was 15, you can pay in 15. If your salary was 20, you can pay in 20. If your salary was 40, you can pay in 40. And this year, if it was 60, you can pay in 60. But whatever it is, it's capped at that level. So what it says on your tax return, what it says on your pay slips matters. And obviously what you pay into your existing contributions into pensions counts as well. With an ISA, you can pay in 20 grand a year, and that's it. That's not changed. So they're the main differences. Now, the only thing to mention is inheritance tax planning. So inheritance tax, obviously there are allowances. So you have a nil rate band, each individual person. If you're a married couple, that transfers to each other. And then there's also a residential nil rate band. So most people that have got properties near the 900 million mark, anything over and above that, as if they're a married couple and the second person dies, when the second, we all know we're going to die, right? No one's living forever just yet. We haven't figured that one out, and nor has anyone, any AI figured that one out yet. And I hope they don't, if I'm honest. I don't want us to be vampires. So completely changed subject there. Inheritance tax. So money that goes into a pension it sits outside of your estate for inheritance tax. Okay, so that can be up 40%. So over that allowance, anything over and above that, you end up paying 40% tax on. So, and this is obviously a very brief nutshell. I'm not giving you a really technical description here. I'm just sort of trying to keep it short and sweet. So anything over and above that, you'll pay 40% tax on. So your pension, if you've got a property that's worth quite a lot of money, you then don't want to be paying 40% tax, right, on your pension if you was to pass away. It used to be years ago that when you died, your pension died. That doesn't happen really much anymore unless you've got a really, really, really old pension. Yeah, so this pension itself sits outside of your estate, and after the age of 75, the person inherits, when they inherit it, or when they will then pay a income tax at their marginal rate of tax, so whatever their tax rate is at that time. With an ISA, it does sit in your estate. So if you've got all your money in, if you've got a very large, a lot of property or a lot of assets, then that ISA portfolio over time, if you're putting 20 grand a year in, will be worth a lot of money. On your passing, that will all fall under your estate for inheritance tax. So really, as you can hear, it depends on how much money you've got to play with, how much money that you have each month spare, what your overall tax position is, your income tax position, and also your inheritance tax liability potentially. So there's quite a few different things to consider when it comes to whether you should do an ISA or a pension. But I hope some of these nuggets of information have given you a little bit of a stance on what's right for you. At the end of the day, from a hierarchy of needs, before we start investing, which is technically what an ISA is, it's like in the investment portfolio, and that's at the highest end. What we should be planning for is our retirement, and ISAs can be a tool towards that if we've maxed out the other pension tools that are available. So it's always looking at how what's our retirement age, and when do we want to retire? Are what we're doing right now enough to fulfill that? And unfortunately, statistically speaking, this is worse for females. Basically, we're not putting enough into our pensions. And it means that if you don't have a property, it's an aeroplane going above it. I'm not sure if you can hear it. But if my door's open, it's a sunny day today, as you can see. If you're watching this on YouTube, the video, you can see there's a lot of sun coming in. Yeah, so sorry, slightly distracted there, and I'm so chilled out for Sunday. I've actually got to try and do some work in a minute. I'm not sure how I'm going to manage that. Yes. So what was my point? Oh my goodness, I should get someone to edit this stuff out, shouldn't I? I don't tend to. I just think crack on. It's just, I try to be authentic in these things, and I've got no makeup on, just try and show up as me, really. But I'm going to take a second, 1 minute. Have some hold music or something while my brain ticks over. I was saying, someone's shouting, going, I was talking about inheritance tax, planning. Oh, pension contributions. Yeah, we're not paying enough. So this is worse for women. We think like putting 2 or 3% in will do it. Maybe if we're like 21. But if your income is low, then that percentage is, in a year, you're only putting a couple of grand in a year. it's not going to be enough. If you want to retire, if you're going to have rent to pay or mortgage to pay when you retire, then it's very, very tricky. You really do need to have not only your state pension, which is probably going to be closer to 70 before I get it. But that's a couple of $100,000, and that's sort of $9,000 a year income. You don't think, oh, that's not enough. Not enough. But that is a couple of $100,000 of a pension, because we are living longer. And that's a whole nother subject. So it's really, really worth digging out your pension information, seeing what you're paying into, and seeing if it's actually working for you. Now, I get in touch with our sponsors, Evolution Financial Planning, which I'm the director of. Go to www.evolutionfinancialplanning.co.uk, book in a call with myself or my team, and we will happily talk to you about your pensions and if they're in the right place for you. Obviously, that's a regulatory, we're qualified and registered independent financial advisors, which is what we're regulated to actually advise on. But otherwise, dig it out, have a look, and see if it's working for you. Sending you lots of love.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Accelerate Your Wealth. For further help or to connect with Rebecca directly, please head over to the website www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk, where you can find further information on our planner, book, and how to further maximise your wealth. Our sponsor, Evolution Financial Planning, for regulated advice on pensions, investments, mortgages, insurances on www.evolutionfinancialplanning.co.uk/podcast.